Hi, so today in this tutorial we're going to be adding the functionality to upload files and attach them to our note. So if we start up our application and take a look at where we're going to add this functionality, we're going to add it to the Create view of the Create Notes page. I'm starting my application. I'm going to log in with an account I created. I'll go to Notes, I'll create a note, and underneath this description I'm going to add another field in order to attach a single attachment. It could be any type of file, and it'll upload it to the web server on the Create Notes page. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is go to our www roots folder. If you remember, that's where we keep files that are not a part of the actual core code, like client-side files or flat files, JavaScript files, CSS files. So I'm going to create in here a new folder called Uploads. This is going to be the folder where all our actual files that the user attaches to a particular note goes. The next thing we're going to do is create a view model. The reason why we're creating a view model will become clear in just a moment. So we'll create a new folder in the models folder and call it view models, and we'll create a file called create note view model. Enter. Now we'll go to our note and we'll copy all the parameters in our note into our view model. All the attributes, I mean. And we will import the actual data annotations libraries so that we get rid of the squiggly marks. Okay, and one more. We don't need this foreign key here, but we will keep it. Actually, we do. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add an actual new parameter to hold the file that we're going to be uploading, or the attachment that we're going to attach to our file. We'll call it public iForm file get set. The iForm file library, the iForm file interface is basically what Visual Studios uses to accept files from the front end, from user. So this will actually be able to hold a file for us. Now, because we're not going to be storing the file in the database, in the notes model, what we'll do is store the path rather than the actual file. Because while databases are good for holding data, these days an actual file system or a database more suited to storing files tends to be better than utilizing a relational database for holding files. So it's just not done as much anymore. But in some cases, for small files, you could use blob in order to hold small files, but I still don't advise it. I say just store the path, and now we could store the file, the actual flat file or whatever type of file we upload, wherever we want, and we just have a pointer to the path of where it's stored. So that way if you run out of space or need to add some additional configurations, you can. Okay, so let's get review what we've done. So we added the public iForm file attribute to our create note view model, and we added path holder to our notes view model. Now we're going to go to our notes view and go to the create view of our notes, and we're going to add a new section to allow us to upload files. So copy one of the form groups, paste it, and what we're going to do is modify it so that we can accept a file. So instead of ASP for description, we're going to change that to ASP for file. For the class, we will say change it to file for everything, all the ASP fors. We don't need validation here because the validation will be done on the back end. Save. Also, we need to change the view model that's referenced from notes, because as you can see on top of the view, it tells you what model this form represents. So instead of it being note, we want it to be create note view model. Another thing we're going to change is the namespace of the create new note view model, because it automatically generated it as models.viewModel. So what namespace is like the names of the files don't matter in Visual Studios. For the classes, when a namespace is like a grouping, and that allows you to more easily organize your code. So if we were to look up, to clarify, if we were to look up what a namespace is in Visual Studios, because I don't think my explanation was clear enough. So let's look up namespace C#. So a namespace is designed to provide a way to keep one set of names separate from another. So it's basically a way to group your different files together. So I still want the view model to be considered a model. So I'm going to keep it in the models namespace like the rest of my models. If we look at the rest of our models and look at the namespace it's grouped under, it's still in models. So I'm going to change that so then when I go to my create view model, I could just refer to it like this, just for the sake of organization, but you could do it however you want. Different lead developers will do things in different ways. This is how I prefer to do it, at least for this project. Okay, so for our file control label, we'll move that to being under. So we're adding a new form control, and then we're going to say we use the bootstrap class, custom file input, to specify that we're accepting an input for this particular, this is the type of input box it is. And for the label, what we'll say is custom file label, which is another bootstrap class. What this will do, and the way Visual Studios and the .NET framework will automatically interpret it, is by using these classes, it'll realize that this is a type of and then also by looking at the model and looking at the iForm group or iForm file, is going to realize that this is a file upload box. So now let's update our database first so that we could store files, the file paths, update database file. Whoops, I made a mistake. We had to add the migration first. So I'm going to pause this for a second until it finishes. Actually, I don't need to. So we have to add migration file. It errored out like I expected. Filed attribute. So we add the migration. It's going to generate the migration file and then type in update database in order to apply those migrations. Now let's take a look at the magic that we just created in order to create an upload field for our notes. So now we can upload notes. Let's log in. Go to notes, create a new note, and as you can see, we have a new parameter, file upload, at the very top. But there's a problem. As you can see, it's overlapping the other fields. So we missed something. So let's go back to our create view, and if we look more closely at what is going on, we should see something funny. Form group. Form control. Well, I don't see it at the moment, but we'll get back to that soon. I don't see what's going on. So now, even if we were to upload the actual file, something happens that isn't right. In that the name of the file is not going to show up in our actual upload box. So we'll upload the file, but nothing happens. So as you can see, I'm going to upload a file, and it just says file. That's not what we want. We want the actual name of the file to show up there. So we're going to add some JavaScript in order to accomplish that. So we'll go to our @section scripts, curly bracket part of our create sh HTML, and type out the following JavaScript. I'm not going to go into the specifics of how this was created and like what exactly it does, but basically what this will do is allow us to take the name of the file and put it in the box, the file we selected from our upload box. So we'll look to see that the document is ready. If you want to learn more about what's going on here, I suggest doing a JavaScript course, which will be coming out with soon, or jQuery course, sorry. So, okay, I'll be releasing one of those in the next year. But there are other good resources out there as well. Change. This course is tailored towards .NET, so that's what our focus. Okay. And so basically we're looking to see that this particular class, any element in our HTML with this particular tag, if there's a change that occurs in it, like a file is uploaded, if we click to upload a file, this function is going to automatically be triggered. So we'll create a variable, file name is equal to $, this dot val. We'll split the information we're getting back from the file upload name. We'll pop out just a file name, so that way we don't get the directory as well unnecessarily, and or network path. And this dot next custom file label, and then in our label we're going to enter in HTML of the file name, and that's all that we need in order to store the name of the file we uploaded in our box instead of showing the wrong information. Another thing I'm going to do, just for clarity going forward, since this seems like a redundant field, is I'm going to remove the category field from my notes. I'm going to automatically set it over here in my notes, create notes model to default, because we know that exists, because it's pointless to continuously enter it in when we already have that information. And consequently, let's go and play it and check what's going on with the changes we made. So it's loaded, log in, test@gmail.com. I'm logged in. I'm going to add a category because I deleted it while you guys, between the last lecture and this one. Default. And I'll go back to my notes, create a new note. Okay, so I found why it was the actual input box for the file upload was appearing at the top of the screen. I forgot to add the encapsulating class custom file around my file inputs. So now if we were to actually run this, my file input and label. So now if we were to run this and it opens up in the browser and we log in, as you can see, the actual file input appears at the bottom. So now what we got to do, in order to make sure everything's working as planned, is upload a file. So I'll browse, choose a file to upload, and things didn't go as planned because we have in our upload file input box, it still says file rather than having run the JavaScript that we wanted to run in order to update things with our file name script. And I realized that the next.custom-file-label was missing a dot at the beginning of it. What the dot does is tell it that it's looking for a class rather than an element. So this was the reason why it wasn't actually updating the input box in our example. So let's restart our code to see the view. So we'll go and create a new file and upload a new note and upload a file. So I'll log in. It's these small things that usually take up time. So I'll browse. So it says choose file in the label for the actual file upload box. So we browse. And note how Visual Studio automatically knows it was a file upload box. And now the name of the file appears in our create post. But even though right now we are obtaining and have the ability to upload this information, our controller for the notes isn't accepting that information yet. So as you can see, if we go to the create controller, we get a note instead of the create note view model. So the first thing we're going to do is change that create note view model, because this is the actual model or view model that obtains the file. So next what we're going to do is add the functionality to receive that file and store the path. So the first thing we have to do is pass in our controller something called the I hosting environment. What this will allow us to do is have access to the www root folder to store files there. So okay, and I will generate interface. I spelled it wrong. Environment. Now we import it, and then we could import the Microsoft.asp.netcore.hosting environment, and we will generate by pressing Control period next to it. We will create an initialized property for a hosting environment. So that automatically does this. But we don't want it to be hosting environment. My naming convention is underscore small h instead of capitalized H. So we'll change that. And boom. So now we have access to our hosting environment. It's going to say an issue because we'll change that to private read only. It's going to complain because it's not used. So the green squiggly lines because it's not used yet. Now we're going to go back to our create view model, and we're going to add in the code to firstly check whether our node has a file associated with it that was uploaded. So if node.file is not equal to null, that means there's a file that the user attached to the node. We will get the uploads folder from our www root folder. Path using path.combine, and the first thing we're going to do is get the path to our www roots folder by using the hosting environment variable, and then saying web root path. And then we're going to combine that with the uploads folder so that we don't have to specify it. So what path will do, we'll automatically create the path using the first path returned by this attribute, and know that underneath that attribute we're looking for the uploads folder, which we just created previously. Next, what we're going to do is generate a unique file name, because we don't want duplicates to be created in our system. So we'll create at the top our class, a string called unique file name, and initialize it to null. And now we're going to generate something called a GUI ID, which is always unique. This is something built into Visual Studios, and we're going to use new GUI ID. And we're going to convert that to a string. This way we'll prevent different users from uploading the same file name and having that override each other. Then we're going to concatenate an underscore, and then we're going to get the file name for the actual path of the file that we stored in that was passed in from the user via the upload. So system.io.path.get file name. So if this does return a folder and the file name, this will just pull the actual file name only, which shouldn't happen, but we have this just as a failsafe in case there's something funny going on with the name. So to remove, it'll reduce the risk of an attack called directory traversal, which isn't important now, but just so you're aware of it. So file path is equal to path.combine uploads folder and unique file name. So what's happening here? Right now what we're doing is specifying where the file is going to be uploaded to on our server. So we're combining the uploads folder, which we got from, which is on our website server in the web root path, and then we're gonna add in the file name to that and combine those two names, and then we're gonna save it using a function that comes with the following attribute. If you look over here, the iForm file, and we actually look at the code behind it, peak definition. So we'll look at this interface and we see that when it's implemented, it has a copy to function. And what this allows us to do is save the actual data locally. So we're going to use that and save the file by using note.file.copy2. We're going to copy that file to a file stream. We're going to create a file stream in order to save it. We'll define the file path, and we'll say we're creating a new file by using file mode create, and boom. So now what will happen when we upload the file is that it's going to be stored on our local computer, and this bit of code will do it for us. Now when we're saving it to the database, if you recall, we're in the case that what gets saved to the database is the note, not the note view model. So we need to create a note model that could actually be stored in the database table. So new note is equal to new note. We'll create user ID is equal to note user ID, since we already assigned that at the top, even though we didn't have to. Category is equal to note.category. So basically what we're doing here is mapping all the fields manually. Usually I would do this using a class called automator mapper, but we're not going to be getting into that right now. We'll do that when we're cleaning up the code at the end. Right now we're just writing in the functionality. So we're mapping all the fields that were passed in from the create view to our actual model that represents the table. The create note view model is mapped to the notes view model. Description is equal to note.description, and file path is equal to unique file name, which is the name that we created. Okay, so we created a new note. From the note that was passed in, these were created at the top. We'll move that to the top, and boom, our note will get saved. Let's change the note that's getting saved to new note and return to the view the note. So let's press play. So this is my From Scratch app. My From Scratch app has an uploads folder. So what we're going to do is log in. create a new note. We're going to call the title the uploads note. This is a description. We'll add that for the description. And we're going to upload a file choose a file to attach to our note. I will choose this picture. And then I will press create. So if we go back to our note, this is uploaded. Now if we check the database, we'll see we got a note here, but the file path wasn't saved, so something went wrong. Let's look and see if our actual file was uploaded. No, it was not. So now we have to find out why. Okay, so what we're going to do now is start using something called breakpoints in order to debug our code. Because we know something's going on, but we don't know what. So we want to actually see the value of the variables at runtime. So the first thing I'm going to do in my notes controller is go to the very right of the number 43 and click, and a red dot will appear. Now let's look at what this does. So I'm going to press play. So all languages have the ability to create breakpoints, and what breakpoints allow you to do is during runtime see the value of variables and stop the program temporarily. Whether it's front-end language or back-end language, you could use them, and they're a very powerful tool. So click login, type in test@gmail.com, enter in your password. Now I'm going to go to notes and click create new model. Now I'm going to type in the title, breakpoint example, and for the description, this is a breakpoint example, and I'm going to choose the file that I want to be uploaded. Choose the .NETCORE, PNG, create. So as you can see, Visual Studio's opened back up and this error occurred. What that means is that it stopped the code on this particular item. So the first thing I'm going to do is select notes, the variable that I'm passing in, and go down and say add watch. So now in the window below we see a window called watch 1. Within this window we could actually expand it and we could see all the values of the different variables that are being passed in. And the first thing I noticed is that we have a file with a value of null, which is a problem, right? So the question here is, why isn't the actual file being passed in? Because it should have been. Because it's being accepted by the iForm file. And I know the reason why, just by looking at it. Because of our form type. Whenever you're actually uploading a file within an actual form, you have to tell the website that this is a form that uploads files. In order to do that, you have to add the following. enc type is equal to multipart / form data. So what this will allow you to do in a form is upload files in it. If you don't specify that in code type, it won't upload the files and you'll get an empty information. So let's press play. Empty file, it won't upload. Okay, so we press play. Now we'll go back to our controller because we still have the breakpoint there, and I'm going to show you how, just by making that little change, the file will be sent in. It's these small things, but they're of extreme importance. Okay. Go to Notes, create a new file, the breakpoint solution description, the breakpoint solution. We'll choose a file to upload, create, and now if I was to look at my watch variable and look at the file, we'll see that the file is not empty, it's actually returning data. So now let's press continue, and we have a breakpoint solution. Record created. Now if we actually look at the data again, we'll see that the file path was actually saved, the name of the file that was created. As you can see here, it has a GUI ID, which is a random string that was generated by Visual Studios that is always unique, as concatenated with the file name that we uploaded. Furthermore, if we were to go to our Uploads folder, we'll see that a file was created. So we have successfully added the create functionality to our view. What we'll be doing